Hey folks, I'm Jeff. I'm the Ham Radio Newbie. Welcome to the Ham Radio Newbie. So, as you can see from the PowerPoint, it has been 1 year since I started doing HF. And I thought it was a good time to talk about what I've learned, where I've gotten to from there, and how things are going. So, with that, let's get started. Okay, what I want to discuss is like why I wanted to go into HF, how I chose the radio that I've got, how I chose the antenna that I've got, mistakes that I've made, and how you can avoid them. We'll talk about what I did right and what I would do differently. Now, as a note, if you see something that is in this yellow highlighted text, that is something that I did that was an error, or a thought that I had that was an error. By the way, behind you, that is my that's my setup. That's my shack before I put in the shelves that are behind me. But it's basically the same setup, and that's what I'm going to be talking to. Okay, so why HF? Well, let's start with the really big mistake that I made. Only real ham radio is HF. Well, no, that is not true. There is a lot of good ham radio on UHF VHF. Uh, and the thought that I had was that was only for local or for people who are less experienced. Wow, that is not true. Remember, there are things like Echolink, and there are um, the digital radios, DMR, and things like that, which I have not gotten into yet, but I probably will, that do give you worldwide communications and generally are able to find things. Now, I have not had good luck of late with Echolink, but I'm going to give it some more try and try to do some more of that. I really wanted to do worldwide communications, mostly Europe and the distant United States, but my goal is Oceania. That's Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Islands. My wife started out her career in the Peace Corps, and she was on some of these islands, and I think it would be really cool to talk to some of them. I also want to be able to talk with people. And initially, I thought that HF would be much better for talking with people. Really, I should have highlighted that because, quite frankly, some of the best conversations I have are on UHF, VHF when I'm in my car driving to work, driving home, um, or some of the nets. Um, it tends to be for me that most of my UHF VHF stuff is relatively short. I do contest hunting, POTA hunting. Um, I don't do a lot of rag chewing, which is what I expected to be doing a lot more of. The real reason, though, why I wanted to do HF is it's cool. It's further away, it's longer distances. It's what radio is what I think of when I'm thinking of radio. And again, that probably should be highlighted as two, but it definitely is cool. And I do enjoy it. And it's been fun for me. So the first thing that one does when going into HF is you've got to choose a radio. And the radio that I chose is shown there, the Xiegu X6100. Let me start by saying I do not regret my decision at all, but I wish I had known a few more things before I had bought it. I love it. That is the main radio that I use. It's the one that I get on most nights. But again, it's probably not the easiest one to start and probably not the one to start with as a newbie. And I've got a recommendation at the end that I'll talk about a different radio. When I was working supporting a sales team, I was a technical seller for a while. That meant that I did the demos and all the technical setups so that the real sales guy could, close it and make the physical sale. But one of the things we would talk about is what's an impending event? What is it that's making somebody make a decision to buy and buy now? So for me, the big one was the tariffs. A year ago, the president was threatening, well, not just threatening, he actually imposed rather large tariffs on China and Japan in excess of 100%. And I knew the prices were going to go up and they'd go up significantly. So I wanted to avoid that. Because again, I knew I was going to do this. Now, I did not have my general yet. So I started studying for my general, and I set a date certain when I was going to do the general and when I'd be ready for it so that I would be able to use the radio. But I was shooting for before the end of March. And then the tariff talks came in at the end of February, and it's like, okay, I need to move on this. So I did what every engineer does when trying to come up with how to do things. I overthought it and I wrote down all my requirements. Where did I do? Well, you see them here on the screen. So I knew I wanted to have SSB phone and I wanted to have it on all the major HF bands. I didn't want to have a single band. And since I'm only now learning CW, something else I'll talk about, I needed it to be um, phone and voice. And so I knew I needed that. I needed the radio to be something that I could learn easily. I mean, I'm a newbie. I freely admit it. That's the name of this station. I am new to ham radio. I'm still learning, and I expect to be learning for a very long time. But I wanted something that would be easy to use quickly. That turned out to be mostly true. Mostly true. I really thought I wanted QRP and portable. I still do. Okay, I still love the idea of being able to go out somewhere or take the radio with me on vacation, go to the beach and sit out on the beach. Um, the Xiegu has a built-in, it has a built-in battery and it's 5 watts. So I thought that would be great, QRP. And oh, by the way, all the reading I did said you can go worldwide on 5 watts. Yes, that is true, but it's not necessarily where you want to start. I definitely wanted a waterfall because I did not think that I would be good at, and I quite frankly still don't think I would be good at hunting around to find stations or people or whatever without some type of visual cue besides the station, the frequency. So I use the waterfall all the time, and I apologize. My mast is falling down, so the I am here bouncing around. Um, I really did not think I would use digital modes ever. Wrong. I also wanted it to be relatively inexpensive because I didn't know for sure if I would stick with it. You know, that is a legitimate concern for me. I am not one of these people who can say, buy once, cry once, because the simple fact is, if it just becomes a dust catcher, it's not something that I want. And I'm willing to spend twice to learn. And actually, it'll probably be 2.5 times for me to learn what I needed and to be able to go into it. I also decided I was going to buy new because I had a very bad experience buying a used radio that everything claimed to work. And first time I powered it up, it was dead. And that was that. Now, granted, it was only $50. So, all right, lesson learned. But I don't want to do that on close to $1,000 or even $500. So what did I do? I went and I researched everything I could about different radios, and I looked at all the big ones. I looked at YouTubes, lots and lots of YouTubes, learned a lot from there. I read all the reviews I could find online. I looked at spec sheets. The problem was I didn't know what I was really looking at when I was looking at the spec sheets, how important different things were. Then, and just as important, I talked to other people, other users, other Elmers. Well, not other Elmers. I talked to actual Elmers, and I got some ideas from them, and some of them were good ideas, and some of them, quite frankly, weren't. There were a lot of people who they have a love of a certain brand or a certain model, and not taking anything away from those radios. Those are great radios, but they would not be a good one for a newbie to start out with. They either have way too many complex controls, which again, if you're experienced, that's great. You can do a lot with it. But as a newbie and you just want to be able to plug it in, turn it on and get going, that wouldn't be a good thing. So when it came down to it, I like the Xiegu X6100. I compared it to a couple of other ones. I still love the screen. I love how it works. This is still my primary radio. So all was good there. Next was choosing an antenna. And I did not realize how important the antenna was. The antenna makes a huge amount of difference. So I thought I wanted to be indoors. I still would love it if it were indoors and I didn't have to run it outside or worry about anything in a tree or anything like that, taking it up and down when there's a lightning storm or anything like that. But that was not smart. As it turns out, it really, I just didn't have the performance that I needed. I do not live in an HOA neighborhood, but I still didn't want anything obtrusive. I didn't want something that's going to stick out. I don't want a giant tower in the backyard. I want it to hide and disappear. And quite frankly, what I've done really does disappear. It's just a piece of speaker wire. If you don't know it's there, you don't even see it. I also didn't want to spend too much on it. I mean, you can spend literally hundreds of dollars, probably thousands of dollars on an antenna, just like you can on the radio. And it probably makes a difference. I'm not arguing that it doesn't. And if you want to go for it, go for it. I didn't know how much I would enjoy the hobby, so I didn't want to spend a lot up front. Now, I wanted something that I could mount once and leave permanent. And this really turned to be a huge mistake. It's not something that I'm worried about now. I want to be able to have something mounted that I can pull in and out. I leave that wire up all the time, but I can pull it down. It's only held up by a piece of string and draped over the tree. So it turns out that's not as big a deal as I thought. So I started with a magnetic mount. You can see that here behind me. And what I didn't understand is that, because again, I wasn't planning on taking it in my car all the time. What I didn't understand is that you need the counterpoise. And that magnetic mount antenna expects to use your car body as your counterpoise. So you see I've got it there on a steel filing cabinet, and it works okay. It's not great. Also, being inside, being in the corner here, again, doesn't work that great. However, I've taken it out in the field. I think if you've seen my my POTA attempt, you'll see it works much better on a car like it's designed. But again, most of the time, especially wintertime, I'm operating in the house and I don't want something that I have to go outside to do. So that antenna was a bust for the original plan. I tried using an end-fed half wave because people recommended an end-fed half wave. It's the easiest antenna to use, absolutely. And I did buy my transformer. I didn't build it, and they were cheap. They were 30 some odd bucks, or maybe, yeah, I think that's what they were, off of Temu or Amazon or one of those. Now, the first one I tried in the attic, and people warned me, oh, you're going to have this problem, that problem, the other problem. And you want to know what? I did make contacts. I made a fair number of contacts, but it wasn't great. And they're not reliable. And I have a lot of noise. So even with the lights turned off, by the way. So I did run one outside to a tree, and that works way better. And I'm much, much happier with it. I leave it out there all the time. And that's my primary antenna right now. No regrets. So let's talk about some of the mistakes. Always good to know the mistakes I made so you can make different ones. So it turns out, remember I said I didn't want to do digital modes, I wasn't worried about it. Well, as it turns out, I use the digital modes a lot more than I expected. I use the digital modes just for fun. I'll probably go on later tonight and do some FT8. And I also use them to confirm that my transmitting and receiving are working and that I can hear things and people can hear me. And that was really the first thing to make me know that, you know what, I'm not totally screwed up. This is working well. It turns out with the X6100, there is an alternative firmware from R1CBU that runs FT8 and FT4 natively. And that's why I got into it. I originally tried using WSJTX. I've had problems with it running both on a Mac and on a Windows 11 machine. I tried using all kinds of different USB cords and everything, but it just runs so much better, so much simpler running right out of the firmware. My next biggest mistake was really not understanding antennas. You know, an antenna needs a counterpoise, or it needs a way to complete that circuit. That's what it is. It's an RF circuit, and you need to complete the circuit. The magnetic mount, I didn't understand. I literally sent a note to tech support at Radioddity saying, what am I doing wrong here? And they immediately sent back, or within the next day or two sent back. By the way, that's one of the reasons I use them. They've had great tech support. I next tried that NFET half wave. Well, first just kind of wrapped around the room here, and then up in the attic. I thought I would get it some a little extra height. There's just too much crap in the attic, too much noise, too many old wires that don't really go anywhere, but they do absorb some of the signal. I do make contacts with that one, but it's just not as good as I would like it to be. So that's not going to be one that I use regularly. Also, using vertical antennas, spending some time laying out, making sure you've got good contact with the ground on the radials. I did not realize how important that was. I have also tried putting radials that were clamped up a little bit, so they're a little bit off the ground, but I wasn't careful with it. So again, did not work as good as it could be. What I really learned is that antennas don't need to be permanent to work well. They don't need to be permanent to have fun. And a temporary antenna you can leave up for a very long time. You don't have to worry about it. This next one was a really big learning curve for me. QRP is where I want to go. I love the thought of being able to talk around the world on 5 watts, even 10 watts. I would be thrilled if I could pull that off. Simple fact is, I don't have the experience even a year later to do that well. You need to be better with your antennas. You need to have better skills to get in on the dog piles and get yourself heard, and how to call CQ and things like that. So I ended up buying an amplifier. You can see the amplifier right here, and a antenna tuner. And I didn't think I would need the antenna tuner because that amplifier has an antenna tuner built in. But I was still having a lot of problems using it consistently. So I put the antenna tuner downstream of it, and my problems went away. So that was money well spent. The amplifier gets me up to around 100 watts, and the number of contacts that I've been able to make at 100 watts as opposed to 5 watts, 10 watts, it's literally orders of magnitude. I know it should not matter. I get that. I know it shouldn't. But for a newbie, having that 100 watt station has been very helpful. Now, that being said, I also bought a G90. I bought that afterwards. I'm going to get to that on the next page. And at 20 watts, I make lots of contacts. So my skills are coming up, and my antenna skills have gone up. But this last bottom thing here, one radio to be them all, boy, that was just completely wrong. I thought that buying this X6100, I could use it when I go out on the field. I could use it here on the desktop. I could. And I'm sure all of those things are true. But I've done better, and I've had more fun and less trouble having one radio more for like a desktop base station, 100 watts setup, leave it ready to rock and roll, and the other one that I put in one of the orange boxes to carry them out into the field. You know, we always like to talk about what we did wrong. Let's also talk about what I did right. So the first thing is, I really like my current setup. I've got the 6100, I've got the amplifier, the antenna tuner, an end-fed half wave running out of the window over to a tree and down to another tree and then down. And I'm really happy with the fact that I am making 20, 40, and I made 110 meter contact regularly. It works just great. It's how radio's supposed to be. I'm also able to hunt POTA and answer with the people who are doing contesting. And frankly, I'm having a lot more fun with that than I expected, and just gathering up my contacts and putting them in and logging them, logging the QSOs, way more than I expected. I am on one group on Reddit where we get on in the evenings on 20 meters and just rag chew with guys. And you know what? That's a lot of fun too, and I highly recommend it. Another thing I did right is not buying a more expensive, more powerful first radio. I really do think that had I spent 1,100, 1,500 bucks right up front, I might have gotten a little more frustrated because, quite frankly, that's more money than I'm willing to spend before I know how much I enjoy the hobby. Now that I know I enjoy it, at some point I'm sure I'm going to get one of those. I'm not worried about that. But right now I'm doing just fine on these, and my noise floor is generally low. Some days, like yesterday, it was high. It was about a 4 or 5. But most days it's down around a 3, and they don't get that much better with the better receivers. Also, as I learned to use this radio more, really just in the last 2 months, I'm learning how to use some of the filtering both on the transmit side and on the receive side. And as I learn to do that, well, if I jump to another radio, I'll know more and I'll be able to do it. Another a big recommended, join the vendors reward programs. I'm on Radiodity's, whatever they call their rewards program, and I've bought a lot of stuff from them. And as a result, I've gotten a lot of free radios from them. I've gotten some good little Baofeng and others, and I've gotten to play with it. You've probably seen my UV7B videos. I love that radio. I don't know that I would have bought it if I hadn't known about the program and been looking at it, even though I paid full price for that radio. And I don't regret it. It's a great radio and it's been fun. But I've gotten that. I've gotten the UV25. I've gotten several other small things with it. I've got that mug that's behind me. Can you see the mug? I got the mug uh, and a t-shirt and, a lot of silly stuff that don't really need, but it's not bad to have. Anyway, when I say down here at the last bullet, practice, practice, study, don't give up. So I bought my radio before I had my general. So in theory, I could have gone on 10 meter, but I didn't. I said, all right, I'm going to get this general class license. I set a date certain when I was going to take the exam, and I studied and I worked hard at it. And frankly, I'm still studying. I'm still learning. This YouTube channel has given me a chance to go out and learn different things. It's kind of forced me to go out and learn different things so I can do a video about it and I can talk about it and we can play with it. The other thing is I never gave up. And I really think to people who are interested, don't give up. Ham radio can be very frustrating when you first get into it because there are so many variables, and you try as you might to reduce the number of variables, but there's just so many different things. And some nights it's just not going to work. And other nights there's going to be too many people on and you're not going to be able to get it to work. And some days you get that Goldilocks situation where everything's just right and everything goes wonderful. And when you have those, it's amazing. And when you get that DX call to, well, I've got one from Angola and I've got one from Australia. Okay, granted, they're FT8. I didn't actually talk to a person. but they still feel pretty good to know that something that you put together and something you did is literally going around the world. A couple of things that I would do differently if I had to do it over. When I first started looking at the G90, I thought, okay, well, that screen is really small, and I don't think that waterfall, I don't quite understand if it really has a waterfall. It does, and it's got a pretty decent one. Yes, the screen is small. It does not do the digital modes natively. You have to hook that up to some other program with your computer to get it to work. And quite frankly, I haven't done that yet. It's on my list of things to do, but that's not where I am right now. I would have done digital modes earlier. I would have started digital modes probably before I tried doing voice, had I realized, first of all, that it is fun and that I can use some of the tools out there to see where I'm being heard. PSK Reporter. I mean, I saw where people, not people, because they're just stations, where stations were hearing me, and they're all over the place. And I could see that, oh, my antenna does have a preferential direction. So with it set the way it's set, I'm going to reach these places, not these places. I also would have spent a lot more time trying to understand antennas. That's one of the reasons that the first videos I did were all about antennas, because as a newbie, it's really different to think that the antenna isn't, what we think of as like a classic TV antenna, but it's just a piece of wire. I mean, intellectually, I understood it, but I didn't master it and I didn't really follow what I was trying to do back then. And frankly, had I spent a little more time, I would have understood the concepts of a counterpoise. I would have made a point of making better ground planes and things like that. And I think it would have been more fun earlier. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had fun. I've had a ton of fun. I enjoy the heck out of HF. I've learned a lot. Like I said, it has been a year. A year ago this week, I ordered the radio. I got it about 2, 3 weeks later. I did buy one of the kits. I will include links to the radios that I have below here if you're interested. Um, I they are affiliate links. I do get a little bit of something if you buy that way. So if you're looking at it and you decide you're going to, please do. But I'm not offended if you don't. And if you want to go a different way, that's fine. You should write up your own requirements, figure out what you want to do, and get out there. Some of you are going to decide you don't even want to do HF. Well, like I said, for me, it was always the goal. Here I am a year later, and I'm still playing. I'm still enjoying it. I've actually started, don't tell anybody, that's a secret. I've actually started trying to learn code because, you know what, maybe I will try CW at some point. Something I never thought I would do. But hey, that's what it's all about. It's all about learning and playing and having a good time on the radio and talking to people. So get out there, figure out what you want to do. Um, if you've got comments, please leave them below. Let's have a discussion about these things. And until then, until next time, 73, catch you on the air. Oh no, what happened to my recording? Oh, there it is. Okay. No, that's not it. Where's my recording?